Hey, I'm Reggie Ponder, the Real Critic, and this is the Real Critic Roundtable, where African American critics come to discuss, debate, and have some fun. I have my friend Kathia Woods here, and I'm excited every time. Firstly, that she just takes the time to do so, but today even more so because she gets on and she says, "I got a junket, I got a TV, I got this, and I got to get ready for this." Girl is busy. Katia, I saw your piece on Swagger, and I haven't seen it, but since you already have a piece out, that means you can talk about it a little bit. And so we got the Philadelphia Tribune, we have cupofsoulshow.com, we got the Black News Channel. What do you have time for anything else?
I do make pockets. I usually try to have Sunday, excuse me, where I do stuff just for my family. Do you know what I mean? And if I have something on Sunday, like this weekend, because the Philadelphia Film Festival is here, then I try to make Saturday and Friday evenings are definitely for us. But it's you have to make time, but also it's this time of year where things are really, really busy. So, but I do. And the other night I went to a concert with my daughter.
What you guys go see?
We went to see J. Cole, which was a lot of fun with me and Katrina and I. And, we had a little light dinner. Just had a really, really good time, her and I, you know what I mean?
I do. I
yeah.
do. I
So,
do.
so I do make time for things. I tell people all the time when I'm in a film festival, I take a day where I just like, because it can be so overwhelming, where I just chill. I treat myself to some good food where I'm like away from everybody. And yeah, I do. And also, I listen to my body.
Yeah, well, that's really a good thing. Can you tell us a little bit about Swagger? It's something that I really want to see, but I have not been able to check it out. It comes out this weekend.
It's out today. It's
It's
out
out.
today on Apple TV Plus. The first 3 episodes, and it stars O'Shea Jackson Jr. and Trisha McWild is also in it. It's about a young basketball phenom. It's loosely based on Kevin Durant's life, and he's also one of the executive producers with Reggie by the Wood, and he is Reggie by the Wood is the showrunner, and it's about a young basketball phenom. He's 14 and he's in 8th grade, and he's ranked on all those different sites. And we're in this age of videos and everything like that. And his mom like videos all his games, and his mom wants him to play for a new team because the coach used to be a former star in college, and then something happened. But he coaches a youth team, and he's a very talented coach and everything. So it's about their relationship and about what he deals with trying to get to his goal, which ultimately is the NBA. And also, a mother trying to make sure that, he stay out them streets and all his community. What I like about it is too often when we talk about student athletes or just phenoms, we're so focused on just their talent and what they can do for a program, or the clicks that they provide, the joy that they bring to others, that we don't talk about the journey enough. We don't talk about what these young men endure, you know what I'm saying, in terms of like just everything, you know what I mean, like the pressure. Who are you doing it for? He has his mom. You have a coach who's like, hey, we can rebuild our team with him being on there, but also being mindful of the fact that this is a 14-year-old kid. You've got his teammates who are like, yo, if you go to another program, what happens to us? It's all of those things that coupled with the fact that he's still a young person, and you should be allowed to make mistakes, but it's hard in the social media environment. So I like all of those things. And it's the other thing I like about it is the Black people, the young Black kids, the teenagers have nuance and urgency. And by that I mean like they're not stereotypical.
Oh,
You know
that,
what I mean? They're
that,
not nobody is like in a gang, that type of thing. I mean, they're dealing with the reality of the environment, but those kids get to be kids and they're three-dimensional people, and you have a teenager who's very sure of themselves, and you also have a teenager who's figuring it out, which is okay because we were there. A lot of us were like, I don't know, where do I fit in? I'm not necessarily a jock. I play sports, but I'm not a star. I'm not a person that sings and dances. I don't belong to orchestra. Where do I belong in this, you know what I mean? The social settings. And I think that's all important to say, you know what? It's okay. It will come together at some point.
And so, do you think you saw more than the 3 episodes, or you just saw the 3?
I saw the 3.
And so, from the 3 episodes, is this one that you would recommend? Because I don't even have my basketball in here, but that's all I do. I mean, basketball never stops. So I'm totally interested in watching this.
I think it's not. I don't think you need to be into basketball. I think the young people will relate to the characters because, again, we don't get to see. I think the closest we have is like All American, but All American is a little bit on the other side because you have the poor kids and the rich kids, and that's a little bit like the kids in the middle kind of get lost.
But I do like All American, by the way.
I do like All American too, and some of the things that they be dealing with, you're like, ooh, that's kind of gross. But you want to, but again, I like the fact that the young people, we recognize ourselves in them. And so, the mother-daughter the mother-son relationship.
So what I'm getting from you is that they have diversity within a diversity, meaning that you get to see these kids not be the same kid, be different. You also get generally a coming of age story, and you get inside the life instead of just inside the game.
Well, yeah, and this is what we always talk about, right? You can tell some Black folks are behind it because they're not letting us be out here and looking foolish. And again, this is loosely based on Kevin Durant, and I don't think he would let you play with his brand like that. You know how a lot of people are like Kevin Durant's mom, she's doing too much or whatever. Well, he's here, and he is everything that he is that you like about his character. A good portion of that is because his mom, worked really hard to make sure that he has a future under trying circumstances. So I think sometimes when people call him a mama's boy or whatever, I think that's a compliment.
Yeah. I'm accepting that mama's boy thing. My mom has passed, but I was definitely a mama's boy. What you make me think of is I saw an interview with Ava DuVernay about Colin in Black and White. I haven't seen that yet either, but I'm very interested in seeing it. And in the interview, she talked about there's this scene where I guess you go through the combines and where the players they don't have a shirt on, they just have their shorts on, and the people are walking past them looking at their arms, their butts, their legs, and how it's so similar to the slave days. And so you make me think about that, about how these kids are just so valuable that you almost would do anything to get them. It's like
it is like we don't. It's hard because a lot of people going, well, football gives so many people a future. I'm like, football is also a reason that where Earl Campbell can't stand up and can't take 10 steps. You know what I mean? And
a lot of players. So, but what's interesting is that she talked about this in a way to say that doesn't say that the sport didn't provide people an opportunity, but it still says that the way in which we're looked at or the value that we have is in our bodies, and it started back then and it still is there today. So it's just really interesting. I'm looking forward to so much.
A good show. I saw it at TIFF. The thing I like about Colin in Black and White, especially those of us who grew up in middle class America, where we were in environments where we weren't the majority. It's the racism that I want. When we talk about racism, it's the racism that we want white people to get. Because I think not all white people, certain white people, when they think racism, they're thinking like blatant calling you the N-word, they're talking about, Ku Klux Klan, tiki torches, but they don't realize the microaggressions and I get it a little bit from even his parents because they're not Black. They don't get it, right? It's just there are certain moments, and I hope it clears up the fact because a lot of people were like, well, Colin was never about Black people. He was never, you know what I mean? But look at how he grew up. And there's a scene in there, and if this is not going to give it away, his favorite sport was baseball, actually, not football.
Right. Where he couldn't play baseball because of a issue. Yeah.
And he's at a tournament and he's with his parents. And then there are Black kids that come in, right? And the Black kids all of a sudden have to code switch because everybody's looking at them. Ooh, the Negroes are here, right? And one of the Black kids looks at him, who's got the polo shirt and he's all really clean cut and whatever, because his parents think that's going to keep him a little bit in better stead. They look at him and they're like, look at this dude. Like, look at how he's dressed. And the other Black dude is like, yo, chill. I understand. And you all got to chill because last year we got, they then interact because like, oh, you guys here, blah, blah, blah. Normal stuff people do when you at these things. He goes, yeah, man, you got to be, because last year we got thrown out of the hotel just because. And then fast forward towards the end of the episode and, Colin's team wins. They're doing kids things in the pool. They're having a good time. And the manager comes over and goes, I guess you're one of those Blacks. In other words, you're one of the good Black people. And that's the stuff I want white people to see.
Yeah.
Like when you say stuff to us or like you speak really well or you're not like that or, it's really, I thought it was really well done. But I'm like, ooh, been there.
I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see both of them. I do want to make a comment before we move on to our movie for today. Is that I hate the term microaggressions, and the reason I hate the term microaggressions is because they may be small to the people who are doing it, but they're big and huge to the people who are receiving it. So when you tell me I have to cut my hair just to play basketball, when you tell me that I'm not like other Black people, that stuff is not micro to me. And so I always just hate that term microaggressions because again, I understand why we have it because macro or big aggressions would be trying to shoot at you or trying to burn your house or those types of things. So I totally understand it. But I just, when we talk about the racism we want people to see, I want people to understand that these things are not small and not small by no means whatsoever. So anyway, you're
right though. You're 100% right because you always, at that moment, you got to decide, do I check you? And then you got to look around in the environment, right? If it's just you, it's, you know what I mean? And then there's a part of you that is a little bit upset because you're like, man, I should have said something. You know what I mean?
Right. But also what's at risk for you? Not only do I check you, is that okay?
How do I check you?
How do I check you? Or I'll never check you because the system won't allow me to do that because once I check you, that puts a mark on me and I'm trying to get to the NBA. I'm trying to get to the NFL. I'm trying to get to the baseball association, so do I say something?
I know, right? So it's always like,
yeah. So I'm really excited about both of these pieces. I
want to hear your thoughts on Swag. I did think about you. I was like, ooh, this is Paco. I said, this is going to be Reggie's going to be like, ooh, Yeah,
I can't wait. I can't wait to check them both out. Hey, thanks for that. That's really good. What I do want to kind of peek into the mind of a television film critic for a second. Today, you're going to be talking on TV. You don't need to go into it. I just want to know what you're going to talk about. What movies are you talking about today on the Black News Channel?
Black News Channel Go. It is probably going to talk The Harder They Fall because that's coming out. We might talk a little passing, but The Harder They Fall, I think, is, and we'll probably talk like some of the other things. This week wasn't, to my knowing, unless we touch on Dave Chappelle again, but hopefully not. but I'm exhausted about him. But hopefully we will talk about The Harder They Fall. And Regina King just got her feet and hands imprinted at the Chinese theater, and in front of the Chinese theater, which is so overdue. You know what I mean?
It is. It is.
We adore Regina. So we'll talk about that. You know what I mean? It's so weird. It feels like it's like forever, but it's really like 1, 2, 3.
It is, because you got to be tight. You can't be like what we're doing right here and just kind of flow.
And you know what? I'm learning. You're never too old to learn new things. I take my time with my reviews for my site, but with the Tribune, I got to learn to turn. I mean, I've been doing it a couple months now, to turn things around a lot quicker and to do it in a shorter span of words. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
I'm also like a big fan. I'm like, we've had this discussion, and maybe you can add on to it. As critics, sometimes you don't have, or it isn't in you because it didn't move you to write 1,000 words about something, right? And not to mention is most publications don't want you to. They want you to stay within the 600 to 800 word range, right? Because our attention spans are like 2 seconds. But sometimes you watch something and you like, I really got 200, which would be in our business what we call a capsule review. And to me, I'm always like, it's better for you to write 200 honest words than to try to push it to 600, and now you're filling in it with fluff and other stuff. And, like a movie like Annette is not necessarily something that
you could write.
I mean, it is a lot of stuff going on, but it didn't hit me like that.
I totally understand. But a movie like The Last Duel, whether you liked it or not,
it will prompt you to write more.
There's absolutely stuff to write about it. It's so interesting that you say that, because you actually I'm gonna spend like 2 minutes and talk about this, my personal approach to film criticism, which is not totally accepted a lot out in the world, so to speak. I hate saying anything about that might give a spoiler. So my reviews have to be, I have to work so hard to talk about the movie without talking about the movie, because I believe when you go to the theater, you should be able to experience it like anybody else. You shouldn't know that the person is going to jump out and scare you, or that the monster in A Quiet Place 2 is about to kill the baby. I mean, you shouldn't know all of that stuff. For me, I want to go in there and experience it, so I work really hard to do that. And what that does is, the reason I bring that up is that, to your point about words, sometimes that is really difficult, because if you're describing the movie, you can do that all day. You got plenty of words to write about to describe the movie. But if you're only going to talk about it and not describe it so much, like we're going to get ready to talk about a movie in a minute, and I don't want to tell a whole lot about this film, because
I don't either, because it takes away the imprint. I am glad you said that. To me, it's like, if you are one of these critics that's hell-bent on giving away spoilers, you owe it to your audience, in my opinion, to say, oh, this review contains spoilers, so that the audience can opt out. I saw something today, and this film critic, I'm not going to say who is very arrogant and snooty in a certain way, that he feels that if he doesn't like a movie, that makes him write about a movie. And I don't believe in that, because art is subjective. It's like us trying to say which Public Enemy album is more important, or which Michael Jackson album, Thriller or Off the Wall. Like, they're both good albums. You're not wrong if you say Off the Wall over Thriller. Do you know what I mean? Because we wouldn't have had Thriller if it wasn't Off the Wall.
I do.
I'm just like, but you're not wrong if you say one or the other. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's your opinion. You're entitled to it. Where I feel as though you have a right to critique another critic is when they talk about things like race, culture, sexuality, religion that is not theirs and say things on those topics that aren't true. That's when you can go in on another person, but you can never correct another critic for not liking something or for liking something.
So
stuff we love that's like you and four people.
I have to say this.
Like, I know I have movies that I'm like, it's going to be me and four other people because this is my jam. You might be like, Kathia, you crazy. I'm not. There are people who love the net.
Absolutely. I left the theater. So I'm really glad that you talked about this. We'll never get to our movie, but
we are going to get to him. But I'm saying,
no, because I got a point.
I feel like I'd be talking to myself, and I'd be like, and other people. And the thing that I don't like, and please tell me if I'm wrong, we're in a society right now, it's not all of us, in film criticism where it's like we're sharing a damn brain. And the idea of having more voices is for you to have these nuanced conversations. It's not for us to have group tank thinking. And what happens is, and this is sadly because of Twitter, you have all these people that will be like, well, you're right. Or it's the same thing with Dune. If you didn't like Dune, that's cool. But you cannot say that the people who dug it and who were into it are wrong. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I do, and that's why I like that you bring this up. I had this hour conversation yesterday with my brother about that. I believe that film criticism is all about taste, and you talk about and he's like, no, there has to be standards and this and that and the other. And yeah, there's some standards, but it's still about taste. At the end of the day, I don't believe that I'm right. I believe that I'm right for me. I believe that I like the movie and I could defend why I like the movie. I also think that I can, if somebody says I didn't like a movie for this reason, I can say, well, hey, I disagree. Not that why you didn't like the movie for that reason, but I actually liked the movie for that reason. It worked for me and so on and so forth. But so when I tell people to find a film critic, I tell them to find a film critic that they agree with about 60 to 70% of the time. And not 100% of the time, because if you get one that's about 60%, then that means that 40% of the time that you don't agree with that critic, you actually might go and look at something new because you respect that critic, you respect that critic's point of view, and you'll say, that's really interesting. That's what happened with me with you guys with Ted Lasso. I wouldn't have watched Ted Lasso. It just wouldn't have been a film. I mean, a television series that I would have gone out to watch. But because I respect you guys, I'm like, oh, they're saying check it out. I went and checked it out. Now, don't get a critic that you never agree with, because that is not going to work. So, but I really agree with you is that I have no problem when you don't like a movie. None whatsoever. And I'm not going to argue you to convince you to like the movie. The only thing that I'm going to do is tell you why I liked it or why I didn't. That's
all you need to know. All these people that say they follow Roger Ebert. Okay, Roger Ebert said there's something good to say about every film, and he's right. It might just be hair and makeup or special effects, right? Or you might say all of this was trash, but you know what? In spite of that, that person still gave a good performance, and that's incredible because they didn't have a lot to work with. So there's always something positive to say about something, right? So to me, it's like, and also we have to get out of this, like, this assumption that if you don't have multiple English degrees, and also, don't assume just because we don't go on there and we post our diplomas that you don't have that, and that you aren't learning, and that you aren't like that you went to Penco Tech. Nothing against Penco Tech, but I'm just like, I'm tired of all of these eliticisms, and it's coming from people who didn't grow up like that. So I'm really trying to.
I agree.
I'm trying to understand is like, where are you getting these ideas? And it goes back to what I said to someone. I said certain people only want to elevate, excuse the expression, a certain type of Negro. And these publications will only make room for these type of writers because they feel as though they are, it talks about a little bit what you and I have discussed, is proximity to whiteness, or what white excellence standards are. And this is why I say to people, I've been very blessed in my career. I came into the game with Black editors and Black writers. So I've never had to do that dance where I'm at a white outlet having to explain or defend my blackness. Now, I've had to explain women's point of views, but I've never had to explain to somebody that doesn't look like me why this is not okay to write. Do you know what I mean? I've been very
Sure.
blessed to navigate in that space. And I also tell people, like, Black media doesn't mean less. I said, some of these newspapers have been around longer than some of these places that you write for. So they have a history here, and they have a history of storytelling and a history of awareness. I'm proud to write for my community. I'm proud to
I
write
am
from that
too.
point of view. And this idea that you're not as important because you don't write at X, Y, and Z. Don't get me wrong. We all have different goals. God bless. If that's your goal to write for a trade or to be at a trade and you got there, go be amazing. But that doesn't mean that the rest of us who's that's not our goal, that we are inferior or that we're not doing something, or that the journalism or the writing isn't there. Do you know what I mean? Because I love
Absolutely.
when people, I'm sure you do too, when people go, Reggie, I read that and I felt you understood me. I saw that because it was you, and you and I are coming from the same place. That means something. Like, I literally did a radio segment and people started following me, and people called in and people were like, I'm so happy to see that there are people of color in film criticism, because our community really be thinking that we're not out there. And it's because if we're not in those other spaces, we're not elevated. And
Yeah,
I really would like
absolutely.
to do better when it comes to that.
Hey, we're gonna leave it there. That's very well said, and I'm there. So we got a movie.
Yep.
Our movie this week is the movie Last Night in Soho. So I'll kind of set this one up, and then I'll see where you come from. So this one is about a young lady named Eloise. She lives in some small podunk town in England, and she has visions. This is like a thing that she has, and they allude to the fact that maybe it kind of holds her back something in some ways. And she ends up getting into school in London, and a designer school. And while she's there, she starts to have some visions, and these visions transports her back to the 1960s, where she meets a dazzling wannabe singer named Sandy, and the world kind of takes off back there. And there's stuff that happens back there. I won't talk about all the stuff that happens, but what I will say is that the first thing is that it stars Anya Taylor Joy, who people really liked in The Queen's Gambit. And I think that I want to just talk about the acting first. I think she does a really good job. I like her how they juxtapose this her as a Sandy and then juxtapose her as herself. I like that. I actually also like this how her visions transports her to the 1960s, because the first part of the film for me is actually romanticizes that time period. I'm like, oh yeah, it romanticizes the music, it gets you into the fashion and all of the stuff that happens back then. So it's interesting how they do this. They make it current but make it nostalgic, and I like that. With that, I'm gonna save for the things that are problematic for me, because I like for you to jump in. But I think they have a good foundation for this Last Night in Soho when they start this film.
I think, okay, so I like this young girl coming to the city to dream. I like her relationship with her grandmother. All my EastEnders fans are going to notice who the grandmother is, right? If you watch the EastEnders, it's a British soap opera. And I like the fact that she's trying different things and she's trying to find her way. You know what I mean? And I like how the film shows that uh, people don't always let you be your best, you know, because they're envious or they're just awful people. You know what I mean? And that part I liked. I liked the back and forth, the nostalgia, how she, you know, goes back to that world, and how her and Anna Joy are kind of like sharing a character. I love how they did it really well. I think, like, when, you know, you think it's Anna Joy, but it's really her as Anna Joy. Um, that I think was really, really well done. I think there are some surprises in there, which I also liked how they did it, because what I thought this movie was going to be about and what it ended being about was like, ooh, okay, girl, we gotta go. But I enjoy that part. And I think it's also important to state that um Anna Joy is not the star necessarily of this film. She's the name to pull you into the theater, but this isn't her story. Do you understand what I'm saying? Without me, I'm trying to be really like not that. So I think it's going to be one of those things where people are going to come to the theater to want to see her, and you should. But they're going to be like, wait a minute, who is this other girl? You know what I mean? What is happening? So I think that is something that I do want to tell people, like, she's in the film, but it's like that, kind of like The Harder They Fall. This ain't it's not your rodeo. It's not who you think's movie it is. It's so-and-so's movie,
No, and so I think as a foundation it worked. But here are the things that didn't work for me. I felt that the first half of this film did the things that I talked about. It romanticized the period. It set up the whole thing. We got the mean girls treating her bad. She's trying to find herself. We get this loving relationship with her grandmother. But the second half of the film actually switches it up so much that it felt like a different movie for me. And it switched it up so much that it's not like it didn't work, but I did feel like they just turned on me all of a sudden, because I was living through the 60s. I was learning the whole thing.
Right, hey, you were doing your downtown.
Right. And then all of a sudden, like, it switched. I think it works, but it was a bit jarring for me, actually, a little bit kind of off-putting. I like it. Felt like two movies. That's all I'm really trying to say here, is that in the second movie, which is about the real story and what really happened, it was intriguing in and of itself. But again, I'm like, should they have done like Dune, gave me part one and then gave me part two? Please, no. I'm kidding. The other thing that I want to mention is that, yeah, she's in it, but it's not like Dune, where you came to see Zendaya and you don't see Zendaya.
No.
I want to be clear. This is not that. You see her a lot in this film. So I just felt that the fact that it had these two acts that were somewhat different made it a little bit jumpy and not cohesive in my opinion. And so it was decent enough to watch. It was intriguing enough. But for me, I'm glad that it was the last night in Soho, because I'm not visiting Soho again. For me, it's a watch it, but it's not a run out and go watch this movie. This is not one. When I'm thinking about Halloween, they're putting out The Last Night in Soho, and then Antlers came out. Those are the two, and you didn't see Antlers. But my recommendation is go for the safe bet, which is Halloween. It gives you the scares, the gore, and some laughs. You're going to laugh at it. It gives you the regular fare that you're looking for. This is a little bit different. I'll applaud them for the attempt, but it didn't strike it with me wholeheartedly. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
Okay. Okay. I liked the tension. I liked when it turned south, right? There were definitely some moments that my blood pressure went up. I liked when we know why people weren't staying in this room and who was responsible for why people weren't in this room. I kind of like when a crazy person or killer comes in a form that you don't expect. I like that part. I didn't like what they did to Brother Man, though. I was like, come on, we still doing this? And I'm like, why? I was like, he's a good guy. let him be the hero. You know what I mean? And so yes, I also didn't like the police like going like, you know, making fun of her, because I'm like, there was some evidence to support what she was saying. Like, weren't you curious why all these people weren't with us anymore? Like, where did you think they went? I did have a feeling though that that it was not gonna turn out to be the career that she was hoping for. But I did like that. The part that bothered me was how they used the young black man. And I didn't like how I felt like I did like the turn that it took, but I felt like towards the end it was rushed a little bit. I'm like, you took the time to be so to be so purposeful in letting us fall in love with this person and these two women, and then it went Nightmare on Elm Street, which was fine, but you then rushed us to the finish line. You know what I mean? And that was the part where it got a little messy for me. I didn't hate this movie, but I didn't like what happened to the young man and that portion of it. And I agree with you. There's an opportunity missed with Halloween. I mean, I know what you did last summer is was it on Peacock? But it's not the same. And that's why Halloween is doing the numbers that it's doing, because people do want to be scared and people do want to be frightened this time of year. And this movie doesn't scream Halloween, even though it's frightening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So is this a watch it for you? What are you thinking?
I think it is a watch it, because there are some parts to it. Now, I know some people that like, there are people who loved it and there are people who hate it. I'm more in the middle.
I am too.
I mean, I'm not going to tell you like to run out and spend all your coin on this and make this your Friday night film. But if you've kind of seen Halloween, you've seen Dune, you've seen this, and you want to go out and see something new, this would be your jam. But it's not, that type of thing.
Yeah, and so my thought on this one is that if you are going to go see it, this is not a full price, let me go check out movie. This is one of those matinee movies. You might go with your friends because you don't know. This movie is kind of polarizing. You might really love it, or you might be like or really hate it. So that's it for me. That's it for us. We got a lot in today. I'm really happy that you blessed us and talk about Swagger, because I can't wait to see these episodes, and I guess I'll watch it this weekend. I'm really also happy that we got a chance. I didn't even know you saw Colin in black and white. So,
but you know what? That was the advantage of, which is weird. It was the advantage of being in Canada. You got to see some things that we didn't get to see here. But I do encourage us to see Colin black and white. I think Ava does television really well. Like, obviously we know her as a movie director, but between Queen Sugar, When They See Us, she really knows how to do good TV. And all you black folks screaming bloody murder about there not being options for y'all to watch, which is a lie. There you go. She's giving it to you. And I want to give a shout out. We need to talk about this show, When KB Returns.
Absolutely.
My new jam, The Wonder Years. I'm still on that thing.
So you had me watch this. So when KB returns, we will absolutely do that.
Dean. That's me. Go Dean and go Mama Dean.
With that, I'm going to thank you again for sharing some time with us. I'm going to say have a fantastic day today, because you got a couple of things. You got press junket and your TV show. I'll be watching. And this is Reggie Ponder, the Real Critic. This is the Real Critic Roundtable, where African Americans come to discuss, debate, and have some fun. That's Kathia Woods. You can catch her at cupofsoulshow.com. You can catch her articles at the Philadelphia Tribune. And now you can just go ahead and watch TV and catch her at the Black News Channel. I'll see you guys next time.